May Allah make this year more auspicious for us. New year, new life. New year, new life. May Allah make this year more auspicious for us. New year, new life. New year, new life.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. Viewers of Madani Channel, welcome to our series of programs, New Year, New Life. Today again we've got another interesting topic, but before we begin, we're going to give you a blessing of reciting Durud al-Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is reported to have said that those people who sit in any gathering and do not make zikr of Allah azza wa jal and do not write salat upon the Nabi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam will be overwhelmed with regret and wistfulness on the day of judgment. And they see its reward even if they enter Jannah. So there are many blessings in reciting Durud al-Pak. And when you're in gatherings, make sure you do the zikr of Allah azza wa jal. You recite Durud al-Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Viewers of Madani Channel, on New Year, New Life. Yesterday we talked about one of the grandsons of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, namely Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala. And today, inshallah azza wa jal, we're going to talk about the status of the other grandson, Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala. And again, inshallah, Hafsab is mashallah with us in the studio today. He's getting himself ready as you can. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, ihsan, mashallah.
Mashallah, Harun bhai, like I said, alhamdulillah, today is here with us on time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Hafsab, with regards to this topic about, first of all, you know, who is he? I've mentioned it very briefly. If you can mention a little bit about him, who he is, what his name is, and then we can take it from there.
Mashallah, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hazrat Sayyiduna Imam Hussain, Imam Ali Maqam, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, was the youngest brother of Hazrat Sayyiduna Imam Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And today, inshallah, when we talk about his life, you know, many people will know who Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is. But, you know, on the other side of Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, about his taqwa, his fear of Allah, you know, his humbleness, his ajizi, you know, we know that he had such a high maqam, that he was the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just being the grandson, you know, is big enough itself. And then, like we read yesterday, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that they are my flowers in this world and they are going to be the leaders of the youth in paradise. So alhamdulillah, Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when you talk about his taqwa as well, Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was very God conscious. He used to spend a lot of time in ibadat. He used to spend a lot of time in doing ibadat of Allah azza wa jal, reading the Quran. Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu used to read a lot of the Quran. And I want to also mention as well, just like Imam Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat Sayyiduna Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was also someone who would look after the poor people. What happened one day that Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was sat with his companions, and a person came to him and he was very poor, and he goes, Ya Sayyidi, I want you to please help me, because he knew that the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were very, very generous people. So Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that if you sit down for a while, I'm going to get my wazifa from Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. It should be coming very soon. As soon as he comes, I'll give you as well. Now, Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he sent 5,000 gold coins. Now you can imagine 5,000 gold coins is a lot of money. So he sent 5 bags of 1,000 each. So as soon as all that gold came, you know, Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu could have just given 1 bag to him. That would have been more than enough to him. Imam Hussain picked up all the bags and said to him, all these belong to you, now go. You know, so this was the generosity of Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And inshallah, no doubt we're going to talk about that later on as well, inshallah.
By that, when we had less money, we were more generous. And as we become so-called more affluent and more wealthier, then I think we become less generous as well. Ji Harun bhai.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I started off yesterday with a beautiful couplet of Ala Hazrat in the shan of Hazrat Imam Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala. And so I'm going to start from there again. कि तेरी नस्ल पाक में है बच्चा बच्चा नूर का, तू है ऐने नूर तेरा सब घराना नूर का.
Subhanallah.
And in this instance, in Shu'aid al-Nubuwah, Allama Jami rahmatullah alayhi says that whenever Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala would stay in the dark, so it was dark where he was, the environment would become illuminated because of the noor from his forehead and his cheeks.
Subhanallah.
And and what we're here to discuss today is somebody whose character was magnificent. And I think we're obliged to start with the glorious ayat of the Quran. Indeed, you possess the most exemplary character. That was the character of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what you've got to remember is this, that the amazing, magnificent, pure and superb character that Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala had was actually, instilled in him because of the environment he was in. So he was the grandson of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he had honor and privilege of spending time with the best of creation sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the son of Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala. This is the head of Walayat. So this is the person, the silsila of Walayat ends at. And this is the amazing Hasti who was so sincere and pure in his ways that I think Hafiz Sahib was quoting a few days ago, that he's in a battle and he's got the enemy under his sword and the enemy spits in his face and he leaves him. And they ask him, why did you leave him? And he said, because before he spat in my face, I was purely doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, he spat at me, I became angry, therefore I don't want to do anything because of my desires, I want to do it purely for the sake of Allah. So this is that. Then the mother, Hazrat Fatima Zahra radiallahu ta'ala. Again, Hafiz Sahib was mentioning that, Hazrat Maisaba, they're going to prostration at night. And they're doing, they're lost in the zikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the night finishes. And she says, this amazing, Bandi of Allah, she says, Ya Allah, your nights aren't long enough for me to prostrate in your court.
Subhanallah.
Now, when you look at the environment, and then you look at the character of Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala, you know where this exemplary character came from. And he was very privileged. His character was so amazing that, again, like we said in the case of Hazrat Hassan radiallahu ta'ala, you could write volumes and volumes and still not do justice to this topic. He had a very deep devotion to Allah Azza wa Jal. He was very sincere in his worship, and why wouldn't it be? His parents, the environment he'd been brought up in. His sincerity in worship just knew no bounds. And on the plains of Karbala, and I know today isn't the topic of Karbala, it's the character of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam, but that character was so amazing that in those difficult circumstances, it shone forth so brightly that 1460 years later, when we think of him standing in Salah on the plains of Karbala, in all those difficulties, the heat, no water, sons being martyred, and yet being patient with the raza, the will of Allah.
People sometimes, they say that, why did Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu take his family to Karbala? He didn't take his family to fight, did he? And Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu sacrificed his whole family. How much sacrifice have we given for our deen? Humne kya kiya? Probably today, astaghfirullah, we don't even offer our namaz properly. We don't read the Quran properly. We say we love Imam Hussain. He was the one who read the Quran whilst his head was on the spear. We haven't even opened the Quran for so many days. So this just proves to you that Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, one day I heard someone, he rang me up and he goes, oh, Hafiz Sahib, I just had a car, Karbala na manzar. He goes, I don't want to be rude to you, but Karbala na manzar, if you ever saw that in front of you, you wouldn't have even survived at that time. So it's very important to know that Imam Hussain, these people are very, very special to us. And what justice have we given to these people? Now, on one side, he's given his life for the sake of Islam. We can't even give a few minutes for the sake of Islam.
I said we make a very beautiful point that, up until the day of Qiyamah, he left an example. In our life, what happens is this. Bacha bimar ho jaye, we've got to take him to A&E. Say he's, may Allah protect our children, but say he's fallen and he's hurt himself or he's bleeding, and we've got to take him to a hospital. How many of us would say, hang on, my namaz comes first,
Allah.
Right? Or, Karabar, your business is not doing very well and you've got parishaniya. How many of us miss our salah because of that? Or say there's a business opportunity, and there's a business opportunity, but it's now, the customer is there. How many of us will say, no, I've got to go pray my salah? Now, that is a little test. What the Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala had is, and the one you mentioned, was the ultimate test.
Very sure.
You know, he's on the plains of Karbala with his family. He's got his children being martyred. The family haven't got food. It's hot Arabian desert. There's no water. Even 6-month-old child is gasping for water. And then in those conditions, the great Imam doesn't run to the nearest village to get water. No, what does he do? He stands in Salah. And from the tents, from the the khayme of the Karbala, and this is a topic obviously we'll cover more detail as we get closer to the days. But from the tents and the Hussaini caravan, what you had was the tilawat of the Quran, namaz, the zikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, and durood pak of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the same time, the books of history testify, we're not being biased in any way. You pick up the books of history, they will tell you. At the same time, on the other side, on the Yazidi Fauj, they had dancing women, they had alcohol, and this was the fight. You're saying, some people say, why did Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala take his family there? There was a much bigger spiritual mission and a philosophical mission. It was this completion and protection of deen that was there. So he there and then, on the plains of Karbala, if somebody could have a bird's eye view of it and look at the two camps here, you got thousands on this side, they've lit the fires, they're singing, dancing, enjoying themselves, and you've got these people who simply, for the riza of Allah, for the obedience of Allah, and for the love of Medina, all they're doing is spending their days and nights in worship. And even when they knew that we're going to be martyred, right? Even at that point, this is the point to really understand and grasp, yeah? To get, when they were there, they didn't know, maybe, my belief is, and we believe that Allah Azza wa Jalla and His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam had granted the walis of Allah, grant the walis of Allah special vision. And Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala knew what was about to happen. Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had predicted it. You remember Hazrat Maimuna radiallahu ta'ala anha, Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had given some sand to and said that when this turns red, my Hussein will have been martyred. So that was all there. But look at the sabr and shukr. The point is this, Hafizab, up until that stage, whatever happened, knowing now that your children are going to be martyred, you're going to be martyred, your family's going to be in difficulty, and then still continuing that routine of the glorious Quran, the namaz, and the zikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla and durood pak, that is amazing. And that was the lesson for the world. No matter which part of the world you are in, no matter what difficulty you're in, no matter what luxuries of life you have or don't have, the test in life is whether you can be steadfast and stick to your
There's an incident where Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu's blessed hide is marched through the streets of Damascus, and a Qari Quran, he was reciting the verses of the Quran, and he was reading the Quran from the Surah Al-Kahf, and when he was reading Surah Al-Kahf, and the verse he read was that the story of Ashab-e Kahf is a very ajib, story. And Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu's blessed head spoke and said, no, my martyrdom is even ajib than that as well. Now the thing is, Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he sacrificed all his children for the sake of Islam. What we need to do, the month of Muharram, it's not just a new year where we make a New Year's resolution, Tiga, Khana Khada, that's it. This is the month where we need to reflect on ourselves. Where are we heading? Where was I last year? What have I done? How have I improved as a Muslim? Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu was sat with his family, Sayyidah Fatima, everyone was fasting. And this is the Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu and the whole family, how generous they were. For 3 days, I'm going to cut it short, for 3 days, as soon as they would sit down to do their iftari, someone would knock on the door and they would give all the food to them as well. These people have given so much for the sake of Islam. I don't get my pizza, I don't get my burgers, we start shouting.
Life is so madud, Hafiz. We don't think outside the box. And it's sad. Like Khalid Bey, we always say we live in a bubble. Well, a lot of people out there live in this bubble where it's just food, money, greed, watching TV, social media, and that's it, that's their bubble. And the month of Muharram, it's the new Islamic month as well. And the great sacrifice of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam being in these blessed days isn't a coincidence. I believe that it's there for a reason. You're starting your new year, and what happens in a new year? You always have your New Year's resolutions. And you know, the story of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam, his great sacrifice, gives us that strength and determination to really make this a new year. And what I would say is, look, it's an opportunity to renew your oath of allegiance in the court of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, at the time, Yazid was saying, give me your oath of allegiance. And Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala said, no, I've already given my oath of allegiance to the best of creation sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No matter who comes now, if he's not on the deen of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can chop my children up into pieces. But I'm not going to give you an oath of allegiance, because I cannot give this hand that has been in the hands of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam to anybody else. And this is the important thing. You know, next time, and I will say this, next time when, you know, Salah time, ask yourself, am I following the way of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala, or am I following Yazid? If you sit in the car and music comes on, pick up the books of history. They will tell you this is the way of Yazid. If you are looking at non-mahram women, pick up the books of history. They will tell you this was the way of Yazid.
Your channels.
When you're flicking your channels, when you're going through your social media, and if you're looking at the wrong thing and you think nobody is watching, that was what Yazid did. You know, he was Bazahir, he was trying to be religious, but inside he didn't have that sincerity and he didn't have that devotion. And Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala said, look, I cannot swear an oath of allegiance to somebody who is corrupt, a person who misses his salah, a person who is a fasiq or fajir. How can I, you know, Hussain ibn Ali, the grandson of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, swear an oath of allegiance? Why? Hafizah, because if I do it, then up until the day of Qiyamah, people that like this will be the leader of the Muslims.
You know, another thing that we've got, you know, because we're trying to do our Islah as well, aren't we, by learning the life of Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know, sometimes you see, Harun Bhai, that people, you know, families will be very, very, you know, bonding and helping each other. But sometimes what happens is, Allah will put them into a test where what will happen is, even though the other person is wrong, they will still give their side. Why? Because we're part of a family. Janab, mara puttar hai, mari amma hai, mari pehan hai. You know, so what happens is, you know, we give their side. Now, Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, if you look at his, you know, he was ready to, you know, give his life and his children's life, but he did not want to do anything wrong. Now, Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu proved here that when he comes to the deen, always choose the deen first, not your family, not your traditions, not our cultures. Today our culture has taken over our Islam. We're talking about namaz. You know, I have seen people, mashallah, aji, namazi, buzurg, but people respect them. But you know, you're in a wedding hall, music's pumping away. Aji sahab, can't you hear anything? Oh, kya karan ji, bache nahi manne. You know, it's your son's wedding, why do you turn that off? You know, and they don't even have that guts. Why? Because here, you know, if you say Imam Hussain, Imam Hussain gave his life and he eradicated the falsehood, and you're not even standing up and turning the music off. Even to an extent, we went to a wedding once and music was pumping. I walked inside and he thought, no, Allah na shukar. I always think, Ya Allah, thank you. Your heart starts beating fast, you know. We're not used to this kind of environment. Now, there was people there, it was time for Zohr namaz. Yeah, I said namaz, kya karan ji, wuzu ni jagah koni. But is this what our Islam is about? Har saal hajj kare, kutha jane ho hajj karne wasta. You know, is this what Islam is about when it comes for namaz? You know, you're following your traditions and your cultures, but namaz wasta, we don't have time.
Hazrat Amir Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala was a great Sahabi of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they were Katibe Wahi as well. They used to write the glorious sides of the amazing Quran. This is how amazing status they had. But because their son Yazid was a fasiq or fajr, because he didn't act upon the sunnahs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he didn't act upon the teachings of the Quran, therefore Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala anhu didn't swear an oath of allegiance to him. This is why Allah Hazrat writes that when you have a Pir or Murshid, make sure that he is in accordance with the 4 shara'it that Allah Hazrat gave, which you repeat on Madani Channel time and time again. Because what you get these days is a lot of these people who don't have anything to do with Sunnah, they don't know anything about the Farz Ulum, they don't have a beard on their face, and yet people follow them. And it's when it's coming to them, when it comes to Imam Ali Maqam, Hafizah Khalid, they say, we love Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam. Hang on a minute. Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam gave his life and the life of his children to teach you that do not follow people who claim to be Muslims but don't follow the Sunnah. Claim to be leaders and don't follow the Sunnah. Claim to be, and this is a very heavy jumla, but claim to be Pir but don't follow the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and don't follow the glorious Quran. Do not follow those people. He said, I will give my life and I will give the life of my children to make sure that you learn a lesson. Now today what we should do is we should look at who we're following. If we are following a Pir or Murshid who acts in accordance with the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, acts in accordance with the ayats of the Quran, has the love of Medina in his heart, and acts, isn't a fasik, it doesn't openly do ghunaah, doesn't, has a beard, does all of that. Maybe he may not have the most exemplary character, but all of the shara'i that Allah Hazrat has given are all found within him. Yes, follow him with your eyes closed. But if not, don't go near him, because he will lead you to the fire.
What happens now, Alhamdulillah, we've been in this field long enough, we met with loads of people, and sometimes it's just, it's a beggar's belief when, someone, mashallah, Sade Pir Sahab aaye, you're in the masjid, you're reading your namaz, oh, mashallah, kutha Pir Sahab, and next door on in. Pir Sahab's next door to the masjid. Why does he not come to the masjid? Yeah, the thing is, so the murid, why is he in the masjid is because hun juliya mein. And I was once in a gathering where someone's Pir Sahab came. We love and respect everyone. So we sat there, thodi der hoegi, and it's like Maghrib namaz ho gaya. Pir Sahab ne bayan khatam nahi hoya. Chalo theek hai, ulama kiram, they know best. Agar thoda time upar bhi ho jaye, it doesn't really matter. So 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you think to yourself, Maghrib time's finishing, what's happening? The masjid wasn't close to where the house. Theek hai, at least come, stand up, at least namaz ta padho na. So I got to the Islam, namaz, our Pir Sahab knows best, namaz na time I'll know. Wallahi lazim, I stood up and I said, can I just give me 5 minutes? I went outside into the car and I goes, please, if you don't mind, I don't want to make a show of it. Yeah? Wuzu, I had my wuzu. I read namaz outside. Went back inside because I didn't want him to feel bad. Namaz Maghrib is only 5 minutes left. Baad if pata laga, Sade Pir Sahab, he goes to Baghdad and read namaz. Kya baat hai. But namaz Baghdad hi padi, to khana ithi khata ne baita. We went to another place where Pir Sahab, he called us Zulf Mubarak, alhamdulillah, this is Zulfan Sunnatan. He had hair touching his, his itne lambe baal. And Pir Sahab ka majzooban. ठीक है जी, मजजूब हो सर. And you sat there, Pir Sahab, he majzoob knows how to play tash, tash na gaya, फिर उस बाद started talking about politics. नमाज ना time नहीं लाया, उल्ला जना मजजूब हो जाने.
The thing is, keeping it very simple, you've given some descriptions there. I'm not going to go there, but what I'm going to say is this. When it comes to these people, if you follow somebody who isn't acting in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah, if you're following somebody who is committing open gunas, and in the quotations, and you must have heard this, gaddi badi hai. And I'm sorry, but if you follow somebody who doesn't come on the 4 shara'i that Allah Hazrat has given, you are not following the way of Hazrat Imam Ali Muqam, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. And this is a harsh jumla, but you are turning your back on the great sacrifice of Karbala. And you're both senior, that's why I said I will be careful with my words, but you are, because Hazrat Imam Ali Muqam radiallahu anhu gave his life for this. He said, no matter who it is, I'm not going to let him dilute the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This pure deen that's reached us today, 1460 years later, we are indebted to Hazrat Imam Ali Muqam, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala, because he gave his life and that of his children simply so that the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam could be preserved in a beautiful capsule with their blood. He preserved it with his blood and brought it to us. Today, when we look at Bukhari Sharif, when we look at all these great books of Siyasata, when we look at the glorious Quran, when we open Kanzul Iman, when we open Siratul Jinan Sharif, when we open all these great books, when we look at the Walis of Allah, when we look at the true Pir o Murshid, when we look at Amir al-Sunnat, straight away, truly, all of that is because of Hazrat Imam Ali Muqam radiallahu ta'ala.
Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu's sabr on one side. So many people have now given their lives. Still Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu is giving them a lecture that, oh people, whatever you have done, I forgive you. Now open your eyes and understand what the truth is. So this part of Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu's forgiving and forgetting, this is another thing. I think every silsila we've been talking about this, forgiving and forgetting. We're not ready to forget anything. Allah ta'ala, He mentioned in the Quran, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَعَارِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. ए महबूब माफ़ करना इख्तियार करो, भलाई का हुक्म और जायनू से मुंह फेर लो. माफ़ करना इख्तियार करो. You know, forgive people. We're not ready to forgive anyone in our lives today.
I mean, we wanted to concentrate on the character of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam, but this topic is so beautiful and so vast that we all got quite emotional. I just wanted to come back to the actual character of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu anhu, to give the viewers of Madani Channel a glimpse of what this amazing character was. You know, this deep devotion to Allah Azza wa Jal, sincerity in worship, humbleness, generosity, the perfect manners. The books of history testify, most perfect manners. 25 Hajj on foot. Courageous to the extent that we saw on the plains of Karbala. But you know, at the same time as being such a courageous person, Khazbay, you know, when somebody's a leader, it's very difficult for the normal person to turn to such an amazing. He's the grandson of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the Islamic era. The Islamic empire is 2.25 million square miles. This is amazing. And yet, you know, the poor people, they would turn to him for help because they knew that he was the one who was always going to have them. And never did he ever turn anybody away. In the nights, while other people slept, Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala, we mentioned it yesterday as well, had a trust, and you mentioned the riwayat in relation to Hazrat Imam Hussain having marks on his back Mubarak. Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam, Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala would carry bread, dates and all sorts of fruit to the orphans of Medina. To the orphans of Medina. He treated slaves like family. His knowledge, his judgment was so amazing that the Khulafai Rashidin used to look forward to his mashwaras. But at the same time as being this great leader, this great warrior, he was so courteous and polite that he was amazing. And it gave you glimpses. I can only say glimpses, I can't say more than that. But it gave you glimpses of the character of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Moral courage, uprightness, determination, perseverance, patience, fortitude, every department of the great character. Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala had received the training from Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Fatima Zahra. As a son, Khalid Bhai, he was obedient to his father. As a brother, he was respectful and obedient to his brother. As a leader of the faithful, he was just simply brilliant. And as a servant of Allah Azza wa Jal, he was so humble and sincere that we saw on the plains of Karbala.
You know, you see that Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, you know, he had the true character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now here, how does that happen though? It can't happen, you know, if we don't give time to our children. It can only happen once you have that environment at home. You go home or your children go home and there's music at home, there's dramas at home, and then you say, you know, we love Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but look at you got to look at the tarbiyat wa Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know, even though he came from such a very high, he was born a prince, wasn't he? He was born a prince, but yeah, look at the life that Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu grew up in, you know, in the hands of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now today, ask yourself a question: what are our children? Which environment are they growing up? Our children have got mobile phones, they play video games, dramas, everything is in our homes, but we want them to have the character of Imam Hussain. You know, so many people, you know, because we're in this mahol, I get calls, you get calls as well. Dua karo sara puttar neek bani jaye. You know, for your son to be neek, I'm sorry, you've got to try be neek yourself. Dua karo sara puttar sari gal nahi bujna. And I think Harun Bhai has mentioned this many times as well. You haven't, you know, listened to the commands of Allah. Why would he listen to you? You know, what goes around comes around. You know, when the Muazzin says, Hayya ala salah, you're sat there watching TV, or dua kar rahe hain, puttar sara neek ho jaye. It's not going to happen.
It's very simple from what you just said. Say you've got a youngster, 10, 12, 14-year-old, and he's in a house, he's in an environment, you know, Allah Ta'ala bless you, in your house, your children. They see that our father gets up in the morning, he reads the namaz, he gives dars from the Quran, he reads Durood Pak, reads Ishraq and Chasht, and then has some rest, then goes to work. He tries to be timely. Zohr is most important thing in his life. And at home, when he's not about, Madani Channel is on. Yes, the kids get a little bit of, you know, the side time where they can watch, you know, cartoons or whatever. But apart from that, it's pretty strict. And you've got Madani Channel, you've got Medina Live in your house, you've got Alhamdulillah namaz time, everybody's rushing around looking for Masala. Yeah, how blessed is that household where, you know, sometimes at namaz time you can't find a masalla because everybody's taken one and you're walking through the house.
You know, one of the fears, Harun Bhai, you know, I have had this conversation with the father. He goes, "Main na bo Maulvi bhi na bani jaye." You know, bo Maulvi na. What do you mean?
I'll deal with that as well. But in your house, when you get up, you're reading Quran Pak, your bachchu ki ammi is reading Quran Pak. Now, in that environment, Hafiz Sahab, as your child is growing up, Khalid bhai, the child sees that every day, day in, day out, every day. That will automatically instill in the child the love for namaz, the love for the Quran, and teach him that there's more important things than games and social media. Now let's flip the coin, because what we do, and that is the environment that Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala tried to give the world. Now let's look at our life. We get up in the morning, the news is on, we flick the channels, we leave 200, we got a chip box, we leave it at home, we're out to work, the kids are watching every gun during the day and the night, the filth. We got music bellowing in our houses, no conscious time, consciousness of when namaz is, when anything is. Maybe once in a few days, we think, I've got a parishani, namaz pad lene. Now we've got that environment, the Quran is gathering dust. We've got no understanding of Sunnah, we've got nothing. Now in that environment, your child is going to go on the wrong way. And that's when, Hafiz Sahib, you get the phone call. You get the phone call, Ji mere bache ki samjhao. Khalid bhai used to say, they bring him with them to the Ijtima and say, anu ko bande da puttar bane ya.
Now inshallah we're going to go and listen to the kalam, inshallah. I'm hoping that we'll feel something during this kalam, inshallah, from Haji Mushtaq Attari. Let's go to the kalam of the day. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
کربلا کے جانثاروں کو سلام، فاطمہ زہرا کے پیاروں کو سلام، مصطفیٰ کے ماہ پاروں کو سلام، مصطفیٰ کے ماہ پاروں کو سلام، نوجوانوں گل عذاروں کو سلام، کربلا کے جانثاروں کو سلام، کربلا تیری بہاروں کو سلام، کربلا تیری بہاروں کو سلام، جانثاری کے نظاروں کو سلام، جانثاری کے نظاروں کو سلام، یا حسین ابن علی مشکل کشا، یا حسین ابن علی مشکل کشا، آپ کے سب جانثاروں کو سلام، آپ کے سب جانثاروں کو سلام، جو حسینی قافلے میں تھے شریک، جو حسینی قافلے میں تھے شریک، کہتے ہیں عطار ساروں کو سلام، کہتے ہیں عطار ساروں کو سلام، کربلا کے جانثاروں کو سلام۔
Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. MashaAllah, beautiful salam there by Haji Mushtaq Attari. And again, we could do a whole series of programs about that great personality as well, the sacrifices that he made. And, we were talking earlier on about, these peers and the sheikhs. But at the same time, you have the great marids as well, the great followers. And he was a great follower of Amir Sunnah. May Allah Azza wa Jalla reward him.
I just want to mention one little waqia about Haji Mushtaq rahmatullah alayhi. He was a Naat Khan. He was, a lot of demand he was in. And one day he was invited to a Mahfil-e-Milad. And the person who invited him to the Mahfil-e-Milad, he also had a cinema that he was running as well. So Haji Mushtaq rahmatullah alayhi, as he was invited, to the stage, because at that time, Dawat Islami, we didn't make any videos. So he said to everyone, if you can turn off your cameras. So the guy who called Haji Mushtaq, his uncle was the owner. So he goes, who have you bought? He's telling us to take off all the cameras. But Haji Mushtaq says that no, please, if you can turn them off. And at the end, when they do the khidmat, he goes, I've accepted it and I want to give it back to you, but I don't need it, alhamdulillah. Now that guy was so impressed with Haji Mushtaq's conduct that he gave the whole cinema, closed it down, and today we have, alhamdulillah, Fizan Madina.
Allah, subhanallah.
Viewers of the channel, you're watching New Year, New Life, and today we're talking about the great personality Imam Hussain. Both of you was talking, and you were both emphasizing the fact that Imam Hussain, that he was willing to give, he gave the greatest sacrifice, and his family gave the greatest sacrifice, but they still did not deter from that path. And nowadays, the least excuse that we've got, and again, we make an excuse that we can't read the namaz, we're not feeling well, it's a bit tired, I'm not feeling a bit tired today, I've got a bit of a stomachache, I've got a headache. And the question comes to our mind, why is that happening to us? Why is that part of our nafs taken over us? That namaz, for example, if we just take namaz, for example, why has namaz become so hard for us to read? It's such a burden for us to read. It's as if we are on the plains of Karbala, we're fighting 20,000, enemies of Islam in front of us, and yet for us, we can't even, why?
When you have to get up for a morning, you have to get up for a shift in the morning, and you have to drag yourself out of bed, and it's cold, wet, windy, but you manage to do it, don't you? And you manage to go, you get changed, you get ready, and you'll go. What is that motivation that drags you out of bed?
Priorities.
But no, it's that reward. It's the reward you want. You need the money to survive, so it's the reward. And what you do is you drag yourself out of bed, cold, windy, dark nights. You'll get on even a bicycle, and you'll get there, and you'll be paid, £10 an hour, and you'll work 8 to 10 hours, and you'll come home and you'll think, Alhamdulillah, I've earned 120 quid or whatever. Yeah. Now, when it comes to good deeds, if you really convinced yourself that every Fajr is worth millions, a Fajr Salah, if you missed one, if you carried on reading for the rest of your life, the ulama ikram say that, okay, if you did Tawbah and you did Qaza, but the reward, you could never make up for that reward if you carried on reading for the rest of your life. And this is the amazing rewards. Now, what it is, we're not convinced ourselves of it. If you knew how precious every moment was, how precious every salah was, how precious every word and letter of the Quran. When on the Day of Judgment, Khalid Bhai, people are running to each other, and baap bete se, beta baap se, maa se, one neki. They'll say, please give me one neki. And then you look back and think that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said every word of the glorious Quran,
Allahu Akbar.
Every letter, das nekiyan, das darje buland, das guna maaf. This.
So sadly, we've come to we've come to a stage where we will offer our salah, we will read the Quran, but there's something behind that. Why would we read the namaz? I'm going through a very difficult time. Chalo namaz padho. So it's not for the sake of Allah.
That happens, Hafiz Sahab. Now what happens is when they're going through a difficult time, they phone up Hafiz Sahab, dua karo.
Ji, dua karo ya koi taweez diyo.
Yeah.
There was an instance where, sadly our ibadat, our reading the Quran is not for the sake of Allah, is for the dunya. There was a person who came to Imam Azam Abu Hanifa radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he says that, Ya Sayyidi, I've lost a bag of coins, gold coins. I don't know where I put it. I can't remember where it is. So Imam Sahib says, well, what you need to do is go do wuzu, read 2 nafal, inshallah, make dua, Allah Ta'ala will make it easier for you. So this guy, he goes home, he does wuzu, he stands up for salah. As soon as he says Allahu Akbar, he remembers. So whilst he was in salah, so he quickly read his namaz, and he went to Imam Sahib and he goes, Jazakallah, as soon as I said Allahu Akbar, I remembered where my money is. And Imam Sahib, it wasn't, bo bada khushi hai. He goes, mein bada afsos hai ki your love for the dunya could not even make you offer your namaz properly. This is exactly what happens. We'll go to the masjid to offer our namaz, but the love of the dunya is so much that we're rushing our namaz. Whatever you are rushing for, Allah is the Malik for that as well. Whatever we're rushing for. And even, when it comes down to, abbreviations, where, we're going through a difficult time, what the Buzurgan-e-Deen rahimahumullah, what they used to do was, if they used to have a headache or a temperature, they'll stand up and read namaz. You know, what we do is, I put myself in as well, we hit the medical box first, goli khao, ye karo. But these buzurg, they used to read the namaz, they used to read the Quran, and that's where Allah Ta'ala will give them shifa. Suratul Fatiha is known as Suratul Shifa as well. Anyone who recites 7 times Suratul Fatiha with Bismillah and blows on himself, Allah Ta'ala will give him shifa. You know, so the Quran is a source of shifa, fasting is a source of shifa, but we'll do everything only so that I can get shifa. But the Buzurgan-e-Deen, they used to do all this for the pleasure of Allah.
I was reading today, Hafiz Sahab, that in the past, that people used to spend so much time actually in the masjid, other than the namaz time, to the extent that traders would set up shops outside the masjid. Because the people used to come out of the masjid, get whatever they needed, any food or whatever, and then go back and spend time in the masjid. And I started to think that, you know, a trader only opens up a shop where there's got, you know, footfall, where there's customers. And would anybody open up a shop outside a masjid nowadays? No. And the only time you ever see a stall is maybe on a Friday, or maybe on an Eid, people put certain stalls. And it made me think that these people that used to spend time in the masjid, but nowadays what happens is, and if you look at Jummah, people time it, and if they can arrive at the masjid when the iqamat's happening, then they think, you know what?
I've done well today.
I've done well today. Bang on, I did really, really well. And if they arrive and they think, oh, sure, used to do the bihar.
You know, we used to do a Langare Rasail, and you know, we used to stand outside the Jummah Salah and, you know, give people free booklets. Someone's paid for them, now they're giving them out. And you'll be amazed, sometimes you'll see even a few on the shoe rack as well. Yani itni bande ki hosh koni, yara, there's the Quran written and they put it onto the shoe rack. You go outside, they're on the wall. You know, I remember once I gave a risala to someone. मैं English ना पढ़ी सकना. कौन है आजी मसले कोई नहीं. आलो उर्दू ज risala. मैं उर्दू भी कोई नहीं अच्छी नहीं. आलो get take a CD. अब आपको CD player कौन है. You try they try every trick of the world not to take it home. Yara, I would think take, you know, one Arakeen Shura, he was given a booklet of Amir a DVD of Amir al-Sunnah in the olden days. So the CD cassette bayan, yeah. Now he goes that after 10 or 11 months later, at home I was cleaning and I thought, oh, you know, this guy gave it to me, let's listen to that. So what I'm saying is that person who gave him that cassette, it's not gone to waste. Why? Because that person, he listened to it, and now look where he is, mashallah, he's in one of the Shura Zimmedar who controls Dawat Islami. So the thing is, we've come to a stage where we don't want to take, pata isra lagna koi bump den gaya, you know, ek CD ki ninja, oh no CD na mein karna. Oh khuda ne bande, take at least something. It's free of charge, people have paid for it. They still won't take it home.
Hafiz Sahab, it's because knowledge has become so readily available. You know, like for example, we don't appreciate water in this country. Why? Because we turn on the tap and it's always there. Yeah. We don't appreciate electricity in this country. Why? Because we turn the switch, it's already there. The only time there's no electricity is when the bulb's gone. Otherwise, there's electricity always there. And so we don't appreciate it. So if you go to them places where there's no water, there's no electricity, or they only have it for a limited period, they appreciate it. In the same way, food, we don't appreciate food. Why? Because it's readily available and we waste food. In the same way, knowledge has become so readily available. You know, Hafiz Sahab, that there was a time where people in the past, they would travel hundreds of miles, and on foot, it would take them days and weeks to just to sit down with a scholar for a few hours and learn something off him. Nowadays, it's so easy, and maybe because it's become so easy to acquire the knowledge, we don't value it. But that knowledge is still valuable. In the same way that all these resources, these blessings that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us, they are so valuable. Knowledge is also valuable. But in our own minds, we've devalued it. And we don't want to know about it. And we're scared of knowing about it, because if we know about it, then we have to act upon it. We just got a package now, inshallah. Amir Sunnah is going to talk about Sayyiduna Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. So we're going to go to that package, inshallah. So we'll be back. Let's go to the package where Amir Sunnah will give us some Madani pearls. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The martyrdom of Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala took place on Friday, 10th Muharram al-Haram. Could you also kindly mention the time as well?
It was Friday 10th Muharram al-Haram and the time of Zohar had started. Now over there, the Friday Salah was obviously not due on him. Neither was he in a position of offering Salah, and nor was it possible for him to perform wudu. So anyhow, it is normally said that he radiallahu anhu placed his blessed head on the ground, i.e. prostrated. Now, was that sajda like the sajda of Salah, or just placed his blessed head in sajda as if he's offering Salah? As it is also a ruling for the Ummah that when you face such dire circumstances where you can neither offer Salah nor perform wudu, as was the case then one is commanded to imitate as if he is offering salah. Like he shall try to be in the positions of salah. So he radiallahu ta'ala anhu placed his blessed head in sajda. Well, I haven't read about him reciting verses at that time, but he placed his blessed head in sajda and conveyed the message that even now, if this head is bowed down, then it is in the court of Allah Almighty, not in front of any evil and tyrant ruler. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad.
Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching New Year, New Life. And in this series of programs, we're talking about the events that occurred during this month of Muharram. And specifically, we're talking about certain personalities as well. And today we're talking about the great personality, Imam Hussain, radiallahu anhu, who was the grandson of the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the message that we get from the events that took place during this month, specifically, which we are talking about now, as Harun Bhai mentioned yesterday, although a couple of days ago when we talked about the virtues of Muharram, that all the other events that took place, but the specific event that took place on Ashura, the event that everybody is aware of, the events that took place in Karbala, the main message is there is sacrifice. And again, the question is that why are we not willing to sacrifice anything for the deen of Islam? Why are we not willing to sacrifice time? Why are we not willing to sacrifice effort? Why are we not willing to sacrifice money? Why is sacrifice has gone out of the dictionary? It doesn't exist at all. And people have this mindset that, well, I work hard for my money, I haven't got any time. Again, you know, it seems to be the biggest excuse I feel it's the biggest excuse that the Muslims make when they say they haven't got time. Allah Azza wa Jalla has blessed you with 24 hours. I think the biggest problem is that we don't manage our time. And so that's an excuse that when we say to ourselves, and we're kidding ourselves, Harun Bhai. I think we're lying to ourselves when we say we haven't got time.
I've got a simple acid test. You know, the people who don't say I don't have time. Why is it that it's always the religious things they don't have time for? Why is it that everything else in life, we have time for? We have time for our children, we have time for shopping, we've got time to watch TV, we've got time for social media, we've got time for everything else. Everything, yeah? You know, even drives with the family or drives, let's go for a drive. We've got time for everything. Ek cheez jiske liye waqt nahi hai is the deen of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
There's a few people that I know, and they're really scared to come out, you know, because of the coronavirus. Baar gaye na assi lagi jaisi. But lately they heard that it's a 50% discount if you go and eat in a restaurant.
So we go and eat in a restaurant.
So the whole family is going twice a week they go to the restaurant.
You know, I remember, sorry Hafizab, I remember me and Harun Bhai went to Manchester, and there was, I think, a legal parallel there, or a solicitor. I don't know if you remember Harun Bhai. We were there. It was a friend of Harun Bhai, and he was talking to us, and we were there for about, I don't know, half an hour. And he said something to us, and it really hit me. He said to me that, you know, brother, when I get a phone call from a client, as soon as, you know, when you see the phone, you say, oh, it's Hafiz, it's going to be half an hour, call this, forget this, I'm not going to pick it up. So you know automatically how long this call is going to be. And he says, so if I get a phone call from a client, I think, you know what, this is a 10-minute call, I'll take the call. He said, I'll take the call, and sometimes that 10-minute call goes into 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35. And he says, I don't get frustrated. I don't get annoyed, right? Even though the call's, why? It's because it's my job. But then when it comes for time for namaz, I'm thinking to myself, 5 minutes? I'm a busy person. I haven't got 5 minutes. I haven't got 10 minutes. And he himself said to me that he admitted himself that it's a shaitani waswasa, that when it comes to my work, I don't mind if it's a 40-minute call or a 60-minute call, or the call goes on for longer, I haven't got a problem. But when it comes to the deen of Islam, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I've got a problem.
If someone has got a disease, yeah, pata laga ke they've got cancer on the hand, yeah, what they're going to do? They don't leave it, do they? So what happens is, you know, you've got this cancer that, you know, when it's namaz time, you feel upset, you know, you don't feel comfortable when it's namaz time. So usna ilaj karo na, try to do something about it. You know, you have to understand that, you know, that person knows that he's doing wrong. Yeah, but he's still not doing anything, he's leaving it. And then people think that, you know, by me just doing that, I think, oh, tiga, it's all right, at least I'm thinking about it. Some people say, oh, look, at least I think it's bad. You know, it's not only, you know, thinking bad, you've got to, you know, it's not enough.
It's all up here because, you know, a lot of us, alhamdulillah, who are blessed with the honor. And namaz is a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. You know, the people who read it and think, I've done something special, are foolish. This is, you've been chosen out of millions of people to prostrate your head in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, yeah? You should be grateful. You know, you should do extra sajdas and extra, you know, prostrations in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal for that privilege. But there are a lot of us who do. we tend to leave it in time. We say, Tori Dera Jari and everything else here. My Dadajan, who passed away recently, may Allah Azza wa Jal raise their ranks in Jannah, they had a very beautiful habit, and I think I mentioned this on one of the programs as well. You know, as soon as namaz time used to start, as soon as, so say for example, Zohar time starts at 1:20 and during the summer you can read it till 6, half 6, can't you? They had to read namaz immediately when the time started. So if you said to them, you know, roti's ready, it can wait. You know, even if there's, you know, you've got guests here and there's others sat there, they said, Bo, you carry on talking. I'm just going to go read my namaz. And it had to be bang on time as soon as namaz time started. What a beautiful habit it was. And it was all their life, they did that. You know, I was speaking to some lads from our village back home, and what they were saying was, when the azan used to go, we used to sit outside a local shop, and we used to say to each other, they were coming down there now. And exactly, you could see that as soon as the azan goes, they were coming down the route here. And this is what it is all about. They had busy lives. I mean, you know, they came to this country in '63. They had 9 kids, 9 children, and, you know, difficult times and everything else here. And, you know, and the other thing that was really mesmerizing, I say this because it may be a lesson for me as well as others, is that a lot of time when we're well off, as Khalid said, or when we've got a good status position, or you Councillor Sahib and Barrister Sahib and Doctor Sahib, and you tend to get arrogant and pride, and when it comes to namaz you shy away. They were actually Nambardar, which is a local landlord, and they've got a lot of land, and everybody used to look up to them because they were the in charge of the area. Yet they were so humble that, you know, when at the janazah, honestly, people said we couldn't believe, you know, all the way through, they'd known people for 50 years, and they'd come to see and they'd come to pay their respect. And these people, somebody was telling me earlier that they were giving a salis sawab that you couldn't believe. One Maisaiba said, you know, I've read so many Qurans for them. And this is what happens for the neck people who protect their salah.
There's this waqia, this buzurg, mashallah, when I heard that, you know, it brought a smile to my face. One of his murids came to him, and he was missing a tooth, you know, so, you know, this is, Allah Ta'ala has made you beautiful. So he goes to that person, and he goes, Putter, why do you not sort your tooth out? So he goes, Peer Sahib, because you've told me, I'm not going to come back to you unless I sort it out. Allah. So he goes back, and he sits in the car, he drives straight to Lahore, goes to the dentist. 1 week later, he comes back to Peer Sahib, and he goes, look, Peer Sahib, my teeth, and he goes, mashallah. And then he, you know, the person, he goes, where did you get it? He goes, oh, I went to this dentist. It was amazing. I stayed there he only charged me 1,000 rupees. This is back in 80s. 1,000 rupees was a price. Yeah. So he started doing tarif of this dentist for 15 minutes. Peer Sahib put his head up and he goes, Putter, you know, this dentist charged you 1,000 rupees for one teeth. Allah's given you 30 free of charge. Have you done his tarif like this?
Allah.
So we need to ask ourselves that, you know, when we talk about other people, tarifan kar rahe hain, falana hai, falana hua hai. Allah Ta'ala has given you this life. He's never asked anything from you. How much then doing ibadat is the tarif of Allah Ta'ala, but which we are shying away from.
Let me let you into just a little secret on that. If you want to thank Allah Azza wa Jal for His blessings, and at the same time you want to protect those blessings and ring fence them, the best way to do it is to mention it and thank Allah Azza wa Jal for it. By just thanking Allah Azza wa Jal, Ya Allah Tera Shukra, sincerely, not to show you guys that Ya Allah Tera Shukra, you've given me this. No, sincerely in your heart, just say Ya Allah Tera Shukra, I didn't deserve this. It's not my skill, it's not my intellect, it's not my money. Ya Allah Tera Karam hai.
You know, remember many years ago, Sahib, that in this country, probably I'm talking about 15 years ago now, Sahib, when we didn't have many Fazana Madinas here in the UK, and there was one masjid that was for sale. Do you remember that?
Yes.
There was actually a masjid for sale, Harun Bhai.
Allah.
And the brothers that were here, the committee that was here, the cabinet that was here, we rang up and found out, and the estate agent said that, you know, oh, you can convert this to a nightclub, you can convert it to a food store, you can convert it to a wine bar, restaurant. And we said, no, we just want it as a masjid. And I remember that we were having our weekly ijtimas, and on weekly ijtima, we mentioned the fact that, you know, that we want to obviously save this masjid. And after the ijtima, a person came up to me, and we still know him, I still meet him on a regular basis, and he said to me that, Halabai, stay here, yeah? Don't go anywhere until I come back. And he went home, and literally everything I had in the house, financially wise, money, pounds, coins, whatever, he brought it all in a bag, and he said, save the masjid. Which, mashallah, is a great act in the first place. But what was also amazing was that literally 15 years later, about 6 months ago, his son, and at the time his son was 20 plus, yeah, so he wasn't a kid that doesn't know anything. Now he's in late 30s. I was just talking about it, and I said to him, like, mashallah, you know, your dad did this, and he said, we never knew.
Allah.
We never knew about that. Nobody in the family knew about that deed. So it makes you think that there are still people there that perform good deeds and they
Subhanallah.
don't show off. But unfortunately nowadays it's come to the point that, you know, we're not performing the good deeds, and then when we are doing them, we're doing it to show off to people, which is again is a sad state that we've come to.
Even if you do a favor on someone in this dunya, and you know, you'll get the return for that as well. There's a waqia about this old woman. She's about to eat roti, and as she's about to eat it, you know, she hears a cry outside, I'm very hungry, please give me to eat. So she gives the whole roti. A few days later, a wolf, you know, grabs hold of her son and takes him away. Now, she's distressed what she's going to do. And then she finds her son, you know, who's there uninjured. And then she hears a voice, a morsel for a morsel.
Allah.
You know, you gave your morsel for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. We've saved your son being a morsel of someone.
The glorious Quran makes that statement and tells you, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, I will surely increase your rewards.
Allah.
And this is not, you know, somebody saying this. This is Allah Azza wa Jal, the creator of the heavens and the one who created you, put you on this earth, gave you all these blessings, and He is saying, you be grateful to me. Don't be grateful to the people. You know, there was an example you used a long time ago, very early beyond. You might not even remember it, but I remembered it, and I usually use it as well. If you walk down a street and somebody stops you and takes you into the shop, and says, "Can you have a cup of tea?" For years to come, wherever you walk down that street, you will say, "Yaar, bada changa banda hai." You know, 10 years ago, I walked down this street and he gave me a cup of tea. You seem to remember that one little cup of tea that he has given you, but the millions of
Allah
gifts and blessings and favors of Allah Azza wa Jal that surround us, we forget.
Allah. Viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching New Year, New Life, and in this series of programs, we're talking about the events that took place in the month of Muharram, but we're also talking about certain personalities that are very influential in this month. And one such personality we were talking about today is the great Sayyiduna Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala. Just one incident that I would like to share with you. There's an incident where he was in the streets of Medina and some poor people, they were sitting on the side of the street and they saw him and they recognized him and they asked him to come and sit with them and eat food with them. And obviously what they had was dried bread or anything, so he sat with them and he took a few morsels with them, you know, to bring happiness into their heart, so that it didn't feel as if that, no, I don't want to sit with you, you know, I'm better than you, whatever. He sat with them, spent a few time with them, ate a few morsels with them, and then he said to them that, you know, I accepted your invitation, and then you accept my invitation. Come to my house. So he took all of these poor people to his house and he fed them all. And and you know, when I read that story, I was thinking to myself that, you know, that these great personalities of the past, they didn't look down on people at all, you know. And nowadays, oh, he hasn't got a good house, he hasn't got this, I'm not going to go to his house. And when we choose, you know, whose house is we're going to go for the khatams, whose house there's a milad gathering at, oh, the food's going to be better there, I'll go there, or he's got more money there, I'll go there.
Very beautiful hadith mubarakah, that I'm leaving you with two things, the Quran and my Ahl Bayt. Now, when you look at both of these great miracles, I'll call both of them, and then you combine them, there was something I was reading that I wanted to kind of finish on today. You know, when Hafsa mentioned earlier that the Yazidis took the head of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala and they placed it on the spearhead and they were marching it through the streets. There was a Christian monk who saw the beautiful Sari Mubarak of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala, and he said, "You are bad people. Will you be happy with 10,000 gold coins if I can have one night this Sari Mubarak?" So the greedy men, obviously they were men of the world, so they took the money and they gave the monk the Sari Mubarak of Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala. He washed the Sari Mubarak, he perfumed it, he put it on a high place, he just kept looking at it all night and he kept crying. And he says that I saw a noor emerging from it that was going into the skies. And all night he spent crying, looking at this beautiful face Mubarak. And then in the morning he embraces Islam. He abandons his church and everything else and spent the rest of his life serving the Ahl Bayt.
Subhanallah.
Now, when you combine the Quran, that Hadith Mubarakah, with the Ahl Bayt, we don't have time to read the Quran. We think we've got time for everything else, but not for the glorious Quran. Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam on the plains of Karbala was reading the Quran. The family were reading the Quran. Even at the time that he was being martyred, he was in prostration, you know, and the Quran was on his lips, but then for most people it ends. But the great Imam then left us another lesson. He said, no matter what happens to you, even if your Sar Mubarak is, detached from your body, it's on a spear or whatever it is, do not stop reciting the Quran, because this is what Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has left. So when you combine the hadith Mubarakah, the Quran and the Ahl Bayt, Hazrat Imam Ali Maqam radiallahu ta'ala personified that for us and took it to a level which we can't even imagine, reciting the Quran after the Sar Mubarak has been detached. Now today the question for us is, how much Quran do we read? And if we don't, make it an intention today that in the love of Hazrat Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala, we're going to every day read at least 3 ayah Mubarakas with translation and tafsir Siratul Janan.
Viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching New Year, New Life, and we've come to the end of the program today, and we've learned a little bit about, and I say only a little bit about, the great personality Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala. And as Harun Bhai mentioned, it's part of our Iman to love the Quran, love the Ahl Bayt, and also to love the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So viewers of Madani Channel, please learn to protect your Iman. It's the most precious gift that you've got. And inshallah in the remaining series of these programs, we're going to continue to talk about this topic, and hopefully we can learn something. Don't just learn stories for the sake of learning stories. Learn these stories so that we can make a change in our lives. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
May Allah make this year more auspicious for us. New year, new life. New year, new life. May Allah make this year more auspicious for us. New year, new life. New year.